After a really ambitious TBR in March, how do we follow that up? With an even more ambitious one, but I'm really excited about April, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Hey, what's up, bookworms and those who love to plan ahead? You are my people. And today, guys, we're going to talk about it with all the things I plan to read in April. So if you guys don't know the new TBR format on the channel, people did ask me to go monthly, and I've been doing that, and you guys seem to enjoy that. So I'm going to kind of continue that method here by talking about just the month of April. A couple of changes to the plans. So I think if you've kind of been watching every month, you've kind of seen a pattern. There are a couple of changes here and some new things going in and some things that were already kind of planned, kind of not moving out, but moving a little further down the line as far as it goes in the year. But I'm excited to talk about these guys because these are series I'm obviously very, very excited to talk about. Now, first, that change, Philip and I were doing one Realm of the Eldlings book per month, but in case you guys don't know, Philip just released a book. He's kind of making the rounds. We both kind of overcommit a little bit, so we said, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and just delay Rain Wilds for a couple of months. So we pushed that back to June is when we will resume with, I don't even know the first name of the name of the first Rain Wild Chronicles book, but we'll be starting that one then. And that way we can still finish Realm of the Eldlings this year. That is going to be the plan. So that's why I kind of moved that one out. Everybody I talked to that's real big hobnobbers have said they think it's really, really smart to take a break between Fool's Fate and the first book in Rain Wild. So it kind of worked out just perfectly before we get onto that. And then I'm going to be joining this readathon on the Keymark Discord. If you guys don't know about that, there's still time to join if you like. But what that is just a readathon where you kind of move some things around with some prompts to kind of match some things and do like a point total. It's just a fun, bragging rights kind of competition. It's a lot of fun. And they had a couple of rules in place. One, you don't count rereads, and I do have a reread this month. But everything else I've kind of wiggled around to make sure that I match those prompts. So that did make me move some things up, move some things around, move some things in. Before I start, guys, there is a light spoiler warning. I am just going to be reading the back covers here. There are some things I've removed because some of these are sequels, and I want to make sure that I'm not ruining anything for anyone. So I had to remove some things. I felt like I've got these as spoiler-free as possible. But I just want to get that warning so no one accuses me of ruining their life. Now, this is the order that I intend to read them in. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and dig into it. First up, it is that reread, guys. It is the channel read-along that we're doing right now, or the reread, as I like to call it. We're beginning the sequel books of Red Rising. This is going to be with Iron Gold, book number 4 in the Red Rising saga. Now, it was originally planned to be a sequel trilogy. As we all know by now, book 6 got so thick, Pierce Brown had to split it up, so it ended up being 7. But the next book does come out in July. So we are kind of working our way back through that in this reread. Now, this is exciting because a lot of people that aren't first-time readers, they haven't read the sequel books yet. So I'm excited to kind of see where they fall on these because I love them. I think there's so much stuff in the sequel books that don't get talked about enough about why they're so dang good. But I'm going to be doing a video probably before I get into, really reviewing this and stuff about why I think you should read the Red Rising sequels. Kind of similar to what I did with First Law about, people ask me all the time, hey, should I read the standalones? Can I skip the standalones? Well, you shouldn't want to. Same with the Red Rising saga. You should want to keep going because, guys, you haven't even seen the best stuff yet. That's what's amazing about these books. But what is Iron Gold about, you ask? Well, I am here to tell you. They call him Father, Liberator, Warlord, Reaper. But he feels a boy as he falls toward the pale blue planet, his armor red, his army vast, and his heart heavy. It is the 10th year of war, and the 32nd of his life. A decade ago, Darrow was the hero of the revolution he believed would break the chains of society. But the Rising has shattered everything. Instead of peace and freedom, it has brought endless war. Now he must risk everything he has fought for on one last desperate mission. Darrow still believes he can save everyone, but can he save himself? And throughout the worlds, other destinies entwine with Darrow's to change his life forever. A young red girl flees from tragedy in a refugee camp and achieves for herself a new life she could have never imagined. An ex-soldier broken by grief is forced to steal the most valuable thing in the galaxy or pay with his life. And an heir in exile wanders the stars with his mentor, haunted by the loss of the world that Darrow transformed and dreaming of what will rise from its ashes. Guys, you have no idea what's coming in this book, and it's so exciting on this reread. So many things, so many seeds that were planted in that original trilogy that I didn't know I was looking for. You see them on the reread, and knowing what's coming in these sequel books, I'm just so excited to see how people feel about it. Because Iron Gold, whenever you see people rank these 5 books, and I've read all 5, Iron Gold usually tends to be towards the bottom. And I have a lot of affection for it because I'm really, really interested in them starting to hop around the solar system a little bit. I do feel like the series does get more adult since the characters aged up about a decade more from where they were in that original trilogy. So I'm very excited. Very, very excited. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. After that, guys, I'm going to be picking up this one kind of out of the order that I've been doing it just because I'm so excited to see the conclusion. This, of course, is Unto the Last by Mike Shackle. This is book number 3 in The Last War, the ending of that series. Now, this is a chonker. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. I think it's almost double the size of the first book. It's massive, but I can't wait. I can't wait to see what's happened. I've been waiting for this, this eponymous first or last war that's coming up. We just finally here. And I get to see how this resolves because I think the first 2 books have been amazing. And I'm hoping he can stick the landing here. And I'm pretty sure that he's going to. I'm very, very excited to do it. And, even as long as this looks, I don't want it to end because I'm enjoying it so much. But hey, props to Mike for sticking to making a trilogy because other authors, it would start to get this thick. And I'd be like, you know what, let's go ahead and say this is going to be 4 books. Or you know what, it's going to be a 5-book series from now on. But with this, it looks like he stuck to his guns, and I'm excited to do it. Now, as for what is Until the Last about, to beat the ultimate evil, sometimes the price is more than you can pay. The war with the Eagle has changed Tensra forever. A coward no more, she'll go through any length to defeat every last one of her enemies. Zarik has grown into her powers, and it's time for her to lead her army into Jaya and spearhead the fight for her homeland. But at what cost? The Eagle Emperor Raku, the son of Cage himself, is waiting for them, and he intends to destroy Zarik, Tensra, and all their allies. They will need to put everything on the line if Jaya hopes to survive through the dawn. Guys, I'm so excited because that series is just slamming. I can't wait to see how he does tie all of these threads together. And I don't know. It's right now, it's like one of those things where I'm like, book 1 was great. Book 2 was even better. Can it possibly get better? I mean, I hope. You always hope. But, with most of these series, it's always like, oh, yeah, middle book syndrome. Well, this one, so far, the middle book's been the best. So let's see how I feel about it. Can 3 actually knock off 2? I'd be very excited if it does. Very, very excited. So Mike Shackle might just mess around and pull off one of my favorite trilogies if he does stick this landing. I can't wait to find out. Next, guys, if you don't know, right now, I am rereading A Song of Ice and Fire. Currently working my way through A Storm of Swords, which I think is personally the best fantasy book ever written. So one thing about George is while he is one of my favorite authors ever, I've never read anything outside of the world of Ice and Fire. So this month, guys, we'll be picking up Fever Dream, a book that's kind of been on my radar for a long time. I never really had a reason for not. I think it's just because, so many times you get wrapped up in a world with an author and you're afraid that if you visit anything else from them, you're going to compare it to that. So I think I've steadied myself enough now to where I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to compare this, a vampire novel about on a steamboat. I'm not going to compare that to the world of Ice and Fire. But I obviously think that George is one of the best writers ever. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to probably end up liking this because just from the synopsis alone, it does sound like, hey, I love me some Louisiana vampires, big Anne Rice fan. And while this doesn't sound exactly like Vampire Chronicles, it sounds, kind of could be like a sister novel or something like that. So we're going to dive into that. But guys, what is Fever Dream about? When struggling riverboat captain Abner Marsh receives an offer of partnership from a wealthy aristocrat, he suspects something's amiss. But when he meets the hauntingly pale, steely-eyed Joshua York, he is certain. York has his own reasons for wanting to traverse the powerful Mississippi, and they are to be none of Marsh's concern, no matter how bizarre, arbitrary, or capricious his actions may prove. Marsh meant to turn down York's offer. It was too full of secrets, it spelled danger. But the promise of both gold and a grand new boat that can make history crush his resolve, coupled with the terrible force of York's mesmerizing gaze. Not until the maiden voyage of his new sidewheeler Fever Dream would Marsh realize he had joined a mission both more sinister and perhaps more noble than his most fantastic nightmare, and mankind's most impossible dream. So yes, guys, George writing some creepy little monsters is always going to be something I'm here for. So I'm really excited. Obviously, I was never interested in like wild cards or anything like that, but I would love to see George writing something a little outside of Westeros. Let's see how he does with that, and I'm excited to do it because Again, one of my favorite authors ever, and I'd like to see how he deals with vampires. Obviously something I've been into since I was very, very young, and I read Dracula for the first time. So let's see how he does it down there on the Mississippi. Can't wait to see it. Now, this next one I don't have a physical copy of yet. I'm only going to be reading it on digital. I have actually going to be receiving it very, very soon, but they've got to make their way across the pond first. But I'm talking about the Bound and the Broken series by Ryan Cahill. This is going to be of Blood and Fire. This is the one that I've kind of moved in to that spot while we're planning on doing the break on the Realm of the Elderlings real quick. And also, I kind of have an agreement with Ryan to kind of be a test reader for him. So I felt like, hey, I should probably get current on his series before I really am. Before he sends me something, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to get current in your series first. So I think that was kind of like his only stipulation. So I got to make sure I move these up a little bit. That's why I am going to be starting these a little earlier than I had originally planned, and I'm going to be doing Gimel after I finish Realm of the Elderlings, just like you guys voted for. But the series seems to be, I guess you say, not quite like maybe like the king of self-pub, but Ryan seems to have cracked the code of being able to get your self-pub stuff out there and into readers' hands. And word of mouth is the best way to do it. And the word of mouth has been amazing. I read The Fall at the end of February, and I loved it. And so much so that I wanted to start this then. But that did help me want to move it up a little bit. So I'm excited to do it now. So, of Blood and Fire, guys. What's happening here? Etheria is a land divided by war and mistrust. The high lords of the south squabble and fight, only kept in check by the Dragon Guard, traitors of a time long past, who served the Empire of the North. In the remote villages of southern Etheria, still reeling from the tragic loss of his brother, Caitlin Breyer prepares for the proving, a test of courage and skill that not all survive. But when three strangers arrive in a village of Milltown with a secret they are willing to die for, Caitlin's world is ripped from under him, and he is thrust headfirst into a war that has been raging for centuries. There is no prophecy, and his coming was not foretold. He bleeds like any man, and bleed he will. Guys, if I was very much traditional fantasy that I'm used to, either farm boy leaves home or stranger comes to town. This one sounds like three strangers are coming to town. So I think I was told with this is like if you want to kind of dive headfirst into the world, get a taste for Ryan's writing style, start with The Fall. The novella that took place, a few hundred years before this. If you want to take your usual slow burn, set up all your world, then this was the best place to start. So I started with The Fall because I was interested to see his writing style and see kind of what it was like when he is writing all his action stuff. Then I don't have problem kind of digging into your world building and stuff. So that's why I think I kind of started this way. But it's also because The Fall was 86 pages and this is like 500 plus, So there's also that. But I'm excited to do it. Ryan's a really awesome guy. And I've always said a cheat code for me is like an author who's really, really friendly and talks to his audience a lot. And he does. He does very, very much make the rounds on BookTube. He's very, very active on social media and just an all-around friendly guy. And obviously that encourages me to want to read his stuff and get out there. So I'm very, very excited for this. A lot of people have told me that if you like John Gwynne, Faithful in the Fallen, this would be something I think that you would be into. And I do love Faithful in the Fallen very, very much. So I'm excited to get to that one. That's probably the one right now on paper I might be the most excited to read next month. So so excited to do it. And I got to keep going with my Stephen King into the multiverse. But thankfully, since I've got such big chonkers this month, it's one of his shorter ones. This is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Guys, this is like 200 pages. This is a couple of sittings. I remember liking it because it had a kind of subtle tie into Pet Sematary. And I don't think that's a spoiler, because it's something as Pet Sematary that people have read Pet Sematary and they didn't catch it at all. So it's kind of one of those things, if you kind of read between the lines of the real antagonist of Pet Sematary, that entity does show up again in this book, and that ties it together in the multiverse. So I'm excited to revisit it and see how much I catch on this reread, because I remember reading this in one sitting when it first came out, because it is very, very short, and it's very, very fast-paced, let's put it that way. It really does just kind of dive head first into it when, someone kind of lost in the woods, which is obviously something that, we've all, you might not have experienced actually getting lost in the woods, but I think that you can understand why that's such nightmare fuel, because if you just look every direction, everything looks the same. You're like, have I been going this way? Am I going in circles? That's obviously something that always works for me. But as for the actual synopsis of The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, on a 6-mile hike on the Maine, New Hampshire branch of the Appalachian Trail, 9-year-old Tricia McFarlane quickly tires of the constant bickering between her older brother Pete and her recently divorced mother. But when she wanders off by herself and then tries to catch up by attempting a shortcut, she becomes lost in a wilderness maze full of peril and terror. As night falls, Trisha has only her ingenuity as a defense against the elements, and only her courage and faith to withstand her mounting fears. For solace, she turns her Walkman on broadcasts of Boston Red Sox baseball games and follows the gritty performances of her hero, relief pitcher Tom Gordon. And when her radio's reception begins to fade, Trisha's imagination that Tom Gordon is with her, protecting her from the all-too-real enemy who has left a real trail of slaughtered animals and mangled trees in the dense, dark woods. I know that seems really, really random. I mean, we know by now that Stephen King is a Boston Red Sox fan. So I think he was probably listening to some games on the radio while he was writing this. And he said, how do I write this into the story here? But there's so much more, guys, that it's not telling you here. And I think that's a really great synopsis because it sounds like, that just sounds unusual. And it's King. So you're going to get a little unusual all the time. But I'm glad that that's one of the shorter ones this month because, like I said, I do have some chonkers this month, including what I actually moved into my schedule in place of Rainwild Chronicles, because Philip and I are taking a break, and I'm going to use that to read Philip's book while he makes the rounds talking about Philip's book. So this is The Way of Edan. A lot of people I know have already read it. This is probably the first time I've had FOMO in a while, because usually I'm like, oh, I'm liking what I'm reading, and I can be patient and wait. I think with this one, it was a little bit of FOMO because it seemed like everybody I know is either reviewing it or is reading it right now and really, really excited about it. So I'm obviously excited about it. Philip's a great guy. He's super intelligent, so I'm sure he's a great writer as well. We have a lot of the same influences and stuff like that with what we cut our teeth on with fantasy. Obviously, he's a big respecter of Tolkien, so I'm expecting to see a little bit of that. And it's Philip, so I'm sure there'll be some Beowulf in here somewhere. So I'm really, really excited to do this, not just because Philip's a great guy, but because I've heard so many great things about it already. And yeah, it's beautiful, right? It really is really pretty cover. But what is the Way of Edan about, you ask? Well, the kingdom of the Eternal will awaken when the Way of Edan holds sway over all the land. So say the prophecies. With unrivaled power and the gift, the supreme priest Bledla leads Torland and its mighty army to convert rival kingdoms by the sword and fang. Among the gathering resistance is the sorceress Sakara, whose mission to protect her island and her faith from the Torlanders' aggression. As holy war looms over the kingdom, a chance encounter bestows a terrible curse upon a young man. The curse may decide his fate, but first, with the help of his unlikely friends, he must survive the shattering of his world. So now I'm kind of wondering how far Philip's going to go here. Is he going to stick traditional fantasy? Is this going to be PG? But he's also read a lot of dark stuff. Is it going to be a little stabby book? I don't know. I have no idea what to expect, because I've only listened to non-spoiler reviews, you know. So we'll see. We'll see. It's Philip. I'm sure he'll find a way to get a body count in there. He may not tell you exactly what their intros look like, but, you know, they might be falling out a little bit. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how far Philip goes with this. But what's great about this is Philip's already wrote the whole trilogy, and he's going to be releasing these kind of in sequential months. I think the next one's in June and then September, I think. So there we go. Philip's got a plan. So I love that we don't have to wait if this is as good as I have been hearing so far. After that, guys, I only got one left, and this was never one that I usually would put on a regular list like this, but I am reading it with my kid, and it kind of worked out for that readathon. This, of course, is the last Percy Jackson book. This is The Last Olympian. Look, guys, we've had a blast. We've had a blast reading this together. Having to wait till April 1st has been kind of a struggle because of that readathon, but he's been okay with it because we've been playing, you know, Zelda while we've been waiting. But I'm excited to finish it because we've had so many discussions about this, about what we think is going to happen and stuff like that. I thought book 4 was the best one yet. And what I said is, guys, I know of my viewing audience. I mean, some of you might have grown up with this, so I think you have great nostalgia for it. But this isn't everything I ever would have read on my own at this age. It just wouldn't click for me at this age. But sharing it with my kid has been a blast. So I highly recommend you guys do it. If you have kids between like 9 and 12, I think reading this with them, that would just be amazing. They would love it. So it's been a really great bonding thing for us, and we're already talking about what we're going to read next after we finish it. Are we going to continue with the Percy Jackson universe? Are we going to try something else? And he said, well, let's finish this and see, kind of how bad The Hangover is, and then we'll kind of decide from there. So the fact that he's willing to talk about other series and stuff is just showed that this has just been a great experience, and I can't wait to continue. But as for The Last Olympian, what's happening in it? Well, all the Half-Bloods have been preparing for battle against the Titans, knowing the odds of victory are grim. Kronos' army is stronger than ever, and with every god and Half-Blood he recruits, the evil Titan's power only grows. While the Olympians struggle to contain the rampaging monster Typhon, Kronos begins his advance on Mount Olympus, and now it's up to Percy Jackson and an army of young demigods to stop the Lord of Time. As the long-awaited prophecy surrounding Percy's 16th birthday unfolds, Percy faces a terrifying suspicion that he may be fighting against his own fate. Very excited to finish this, guys, because we've been having so many discussions about what we think is going to happen. And by now, I just want to know who's right, me or him. Because he's been right actually more than I have in this. And I think that that's just great because his little brain is just absolutely obsessed with this. Like, we were watching something the other day. It was just two people, something having a sword fight. And he was like, oh, yeah, this is like when Percy fought Luke and stuff. So that's how you know it's really just dominating his thoughts, is when he's comparing everything to it. And this has just been perfect. So thank you guys so much for the recommendation. And I hope, that, like I said, if you have young kids, you'll check this out or kind of nudge them to read it, because I think it really is just it's aged wonderfully for that kind of that bracket of age. Would be just perfect. So hope more people will. I don't want to say more people pick it up, because I mean the guy's been selling millions of books. He's doing fine. But with that Disney Plus adaptation coming soon, which has Rick Riordan involved, which has me somewhat optimistic. But also, like this, if it's bad, that could be a great learning experience for my kid, because learn that, hey, adaptations rarely go the way that you want them to. But I'm excited to do it. But guys, that's 7 books this month. So I don't think there'll be very much if I have time stuff. I would be shocked if I'm able to finish all these in the month of April. That's a lot of reading, but I'm excited to give it a go. And as always, this is more of a goal than a to-do list. This is always what I'd like to read this month. Sometimes it doesn't quite happen. Like right now, I don't know if I'm going to finish Storm of Swords before the end of the month of March. So, sometimes these things work out, sometimes they don't. It's always just kind of a guesstimate on my end. But if I do have extra time somehow, it will be starting my Ball with Beasts reread. Now, what is that, you ask? What that is, if you guys don't know, books number 4 and 5 of A Song of Ice and Fire, they take place at the same time with different characters. So what a group of wonderful individuals have done is they've taken those 2 books, A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, and they've kind of mixed them together in chronological order. And there is a reading schedule kind of thing that you can do to kind of read them in order. So I'll be doing that. But guys, those 2 books combined are like 2,000 pages on hardcover. So that would take a long, long time. So that wouldn't be anything that I say is going to be something I'm reading in April, but I'll probably give it a start because I am going to be on several of those panels for both A Dance with Dragons and A Feast for Crows. So I'd like to make sure that I'm able to remember it enough to talk about it. So this will be the first time I'm rereading either of these. It's only the second time I've read A Dance with Dragons. I only read it when it first came out. And this will be the 3rd reading of A Feast for Crows for me, because I read it again right before A Dance with Dragons came out. But guys, that's kind of everything I've got planned for the month of April. I'd love to hear anything that you plan to read in April. Are you going to join me for any of these? I'd love to have you. Lots of people on the Discord are apparently picking up The Bound and the Broken with me. So we would love to have you there as well as here. So guys, drop in the comments. Let me know what you are thinking, and I will talk to you there.